We are thrilled to have Jim Rogers here with us today. Jim is a legendary American investor and financial commentator based in Singapore. Jim started the Quantum Fund with George Soros and has ridden around the world on a motorcycle, as well as a Mercedes-Benz. His books include Investment Biker and a Venture Capitalist. He is chairman of Beelan Interests and continues to be an active investor. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today. Really great to have you.
I'm very, very pleased to be here. I'm honored. I'm flattered. I'm delighted to be here.
Now, one of the things that's great, and I've always loved Singapore in the times I have visited, is you're based in Singapore, and I think that gives you some insights that you're not sort of in the U.S., and the U.S., as you might imagine, is very U.S.-centric, and sometimes we sort of tune out other things. So Singapore, you're in a really good place, smart people, and you hear other things. So I'm glad. I'll be very happy to hear what you're thinking about some things away from the U.S. So if I might ask, what made you choose to be based in Singapore?
Well, I wanted my children to speak Mandarin. I've talked about it for decades before they were born, even. And we were doing it in New York. But at one point, we realized that if we were serious, we were going to have to be in a city where she had to speak Mandarin, where she didn't have any choice. She would come home from the park crying because everybody spoke Spanish and laughed at her because she spoke Chinese. Well, we realized that if we were very serious, and I was extremely serious, we had to go to a Chinese speaking city. We tried China, it was very polluted. I don't speak Chinese. Singapore is perfect. Everything works in Singapore, and they speak Chinese and English. So it was great for
Well,
me. Here we are, very happy.
That's great. There are so many things going on in the world today, and some people have argued that, with what President Trump is doing more than anyone since World War II to dismantle sort of the post-war international economic system. And we hear a lot, many things about this is the beginning of the end of the dollar hegemony, and the U.S. will never be the same. From your vantage point, is this really a deep change to the international system as we know it, or is this something that we'll get over, or this is just sort of a natural progression, and Trump perhaps happens to be the catalyst?
I'm an American and quite happy to be an American. The situation is that America is now the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. No country ever has been so deep in debt as we are in the U.S., and the debt gets higher and higher every week. In Washington, they don't seem to know or care. Now, I've read enough history to know what happens to countries that go through this. 100 years ago, Britain was the richest, most powerful country in the world. 50 years later, they were bankrupt, literally, had to be bailed out by the IMF. Well, I mean, I can add, I can subtract. I know what's happening to the US, and I know that my children will have serious problems with the US economy and the US dollar. I don't like it, but I have to face facts. And your next question should be, what's going to compete with the dollar? And I will tell you, I don't know. I look every day to find a new competitor. I don't know what it's going to be. Logically, it should be the Chinese currency, but the Chinese currency Chinese a blocked currency. You cannot be the world's international currency if you're a blocked currency. So I don't know. I mean, the Chinese are working in the right direction, but it's a long way.
I want to get to some of your thoughts on some of the other countries other than China, but playing devil's advocate. The United States, 30 odd trillion dollars in debt, and continuing to grow. I suppose you could say the only hope is we grow faster than the debt, or there is some kind of inflation where we inflate it away. But as a devil's advocate, if I said I owe this huge credit card bill debt, but as long as I can keep making the monthly payments, it will continue for as long as I want. And presumably, there's someone said, if you owe the bank, $1 million, the bank owns you. But if you owe the bank $200 million you owe in the bank. So why can't we keep doing this for in perpetuity, or for the next 30, 50 years?
Hooray, you have discovered the answer. My only reply to that is it's never worked in the past. Many countries have become gigantic debtors, and every one of them has slid into, well, big problems. Every one of them. I don't know any story where being a gigantic debtor has led to permanent prosperity and good times. Maybe it will. Maybe for Taiwan, it's it. All we have to do is give him more debt, more debt, more debt, and you will own the world. You'll be the first. It's never happened before. Eventually, we have to pay the piper.
So I have several children. So some of them have just graduated from college, and I believe you have a daughter who may have just graduated from college as well. From the medium to long term, and I used to be a short-term trader, and I recall there was a quote of yours that you said you weren't the best short-term trader. But if we're telling our children who are just graduating from college where to invest for the next 40 years. We talked about China. There have bumps in the road. Where would you allocate your money? Tell them to allocate their money. Is it the U.S.? Is it China? Is it Brazil? Is it India? What do you like in what you've seen for the medium to long term?
Well, both of my children speak perfect Mandarin, perfect Chinese, because I think that in their lifetime, China is going to be the most important country, or certainly a very important country. So I hope I've made that investment. I hope I have prepared them, or begun to prepare them for the 21st century, for their lifetime. Should they invest there? Well, if they know what they're doing, but I've learned the hard way many times. If you don't know what you're doing, don't invest. Do not do anything. It's better to do nothing than to do the wrong thing. Yes, I'm wildly optimistic about China. I do have investments in China, but I know that there will be problems along the way. America became extremely successful, but we had depressions, civil war, we had many gigantic problems as we rose. It hurt, but we still did it. Everybody's going to have problems. Vietnam has got great prospects and a big population and big neighbors. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that'll be it. I don't know yet. I'm trying to find out.
So if I find a country, and I think just for the sake of argument, let's say it's India because they are still growing. They're not supposed to hit peak population for another 50 years or so, give or take. In what sectors in a country would you look to invest, or are you looking for the best companies, the best industries? How do you invest in a specific country?
Well, India certainly, and for the first time in my lifetime, I have come to the conclusion that the people in Delhi, the capital, realize that prosperity is good, success is good. For many years, they always said, Nehru and Gandhi, all those people said they wanted prosperity, but they didn't mean it. They didn't like rich people. They didn't like successful people. But now, for the first time in my lifetime, it's my judgment that the people in the capital understand that prosperity is good, that success is good. So India, if I'm right, has a wonderful future. Many people, a big population, educated, smart, lots of great things going on in India. So yes, if you don't know about India, I suggest you learn. And by the way, if one can visit only one country in the world, it should be India. Oh my gosh, the man-made sites, the natural sites, the food, everything. It's such an exciting country. And now it may be one of the next great countries in the world.
Any specific sectors that you like in India? Should we invest in the banks? Should we in
Well,
industry?
everything, everything, because India sat there backwards for decades, centuries. Tourism, for instance, inbound and outbound because there are lots of Indians. They want to see their own country, they want to see the world, and it's a magnificent tourist site. Everybody should go to India. If you can only visit one country in your life, go to India. It's astonishing.
I'm gonna scribble it on my notepad to look deeper into India and find. I'm probably a little bit lazy, so I'll probably find an ETF to buy or something like that. You've been involved in the commodities for for a long time, and I know recently you've said that you've been a big fan of gold, but you are currently a really big fan of silver. Silver can't seem quite to get above $40 for the moment, but what's your target for silver? If there is such a thing in terms of where do you see it going?
I don't have such a thing. I mean, I own silver. I bought more silver recently. I hope I'm smart enough to continue to buy silver. Silver's down a lot from its all-time high. Gold is making all-time highs. So in theory, historically, silver's cheaper than gold, which is why I'm not buying gold right now. I'm not selling gold, but I'm not buying at the moment. But I prefer to buy silver instead of gold at the moment, and I have done so recently.
How do you feel about platinum? It's one of those things that, for many years as I was a metals trader, platinum was worth quite a bit more than gold. And then the tables turned, and, sort of platinum in some ways couldn't get out of its own way. And we always thought that if you had to accumulate reserves, you couldn't buy enough platinum because it was such a small market before moving the entire market against you. Seems that the Chinese may be getting a little bit more interested in that. Do you have a view or a feel for platinum?
I don't own platinum, but if you said to me, here's a few bucks, I would certainly use some of it to buy platinum. Platinum's got a great future. I mean, whether we have pollution, automobile pollution or not, platinum has a great future. Platinum is used in catalytic converters to clean automobile pollution, but platinum is used for many things.
Certainly for jewelry as well. So, do you have any feelings on in terms of base metals? Many people like copper. They call it Doctor Copper. Copper knows. It's supposed to have a clue to direct tells you where the economy is going. And I guess the marginal buyer of all of those base metals is China. Do you have a view on base metals, copper specifically?
Yes, I'm optimistic about all natural resources, all commodities at the moment. Not oil because it's making all-time highs, but no, I see what's happening in the world. I see what's happening to supply of nearly all commodities. I mean, everybody knows about copper, but very few people have opened a copper mine in decades. I mean, whether we like it or not, the supply of most of this stuff is in decline, and we're going to have shortages in the future, and that means higher prices.
I think you're right. It's very tough to be a miner. You have to deal with governments and countries and labor unions and workers, and it's not really environmentally friendly. So the view is copper in some ways is frustrating to me because you're always saying there's a big shortage. They're not really building new mines, and it should be much higher, and it's not. It sort of reminds me of Charles de Gaulle. He was quite an acerbic and clever man. He said it's something he said about Brazil. He says Brazil is the country of the future, and always will be. And I think of when is copper actually going to rally? And
Don't worry, Ty. Copper will have many more bull markets. I hope we both live long enough to see many more bull markets in copper because they will happen. The world is not going to stop using copper, not in our lifetimes. There will be some huge bull markets.
with these, sort of the tariffs, and just the other day they said Trump is going to tariff, maybe 400 or 500 items that use steel and aluminum, and they think copper is coming down the pipe. I mean, tariffs in a way, I guess they're a tax if you want to think about it, some kind of value-added tax. Is this? I mean, are we regressing back into the 19th and 20th centuries when we had a lot of tariffs, or is this some kind of dream or nightmare that we're going to wake up from at some stage and say, this is this is perhaps not the best idea.
I assure you we're going to wake up someday because history's been around for hundreds of years and proved many times that tariffs don't work, that they're not good. They're good for a few people, a few countries, a few individuals, a few industries for a while. But in the long term, tariffs are not the solution to most problems. They create more problems than they solve. Now, they're easy, and many people like them because they're easy, but they're not a good solution.
I had a thought of, and I guess President Trump seems to be particularly fixated on it, and I'm going to make the assumption that he really truly does believe that tariffs are the way. But is it in a way, if you needed to raise revenue and you didn't want to raise the tax rate, it is in some ways a stealth corporate tax if the corporations can't pass along the cost, and a value added tax in some ways. Is this a clever stealth way of raising funds without raising the tax rate?
Stealth, yes, of course it is. I mean, most people don't. I mean, if a country puts on a lot of tariffs, few in the country even know it. Of course, the industries or people that are helped by it know it, but tariffs are not a very visible tax. They are a tax, but many politicians throughout history have liked them for many reasons. They can always say it's the foreigners, it's the foreigners, it's the foreigners. It's easy to condemn foreigners. So tariffs have always been useful for many politicians. But I repeat, that in the long run, they have never made anybody really prosperous.
What is your view on the dollar? Is the dollar in trouble because of the debt load? And what's the path for the dollar going forward?
Well, I own a lot of US dollars, but the US is now the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and the debts get higher every day, and it's going to lead to gigantic problems. I can remember when Britain was the richest, most powerful country in the world. It ran up huge debts, and within 50 years, it was bankrupt. I can see what's happening in the US, and I know it's going to lead to gigantic problems for the US, just as it has for every other country in history that's done this. You can tell that to Washington, but they say, don't worry, we're different. It's different this time. Be very careful when you hear those words anywhere. When they say it's different this time, close the door and go to another room. But it's never different this time, eventually, and we will all learn that.
What would be a signal that we are teetering on, moving towards bankruptcy and now we can't really stop it? Is there, in your many decades of experience, and my institutional memory only goes back to 1987. I was 17. I worked as an intern at Merrill Lynch, and I was there the day the market crashed. My memory doesn't go back beyond that, really. Is there a signal or signals that we should be watching for? Say, watch out, here it comes, and now you're too far gone to stop it.
Well, I will repeat, I own a lot of US dollars, and you will probably say, what? You just told me it's the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. And it is. I own the US dollar because most people in the world want a safe haven for historic reasons. Many people think that the US dollar is a safe haven. What I expect to happen in the next crisis, the US dollar will go up a lot because people will not know what else to do. I hope I'm smart enough to sell it if that happens, because I know that that will probably be the last big move for the US dollar. And your next question should be, where will you put your money? And I don't have an answer yet. I need that answer, but I don't have it yet. If you know the answer, please don't announce it.
I'll
Send me
send
a
you.
private email.
I'll send you a private email. Talking about the next big rally in dollar, the next big scare is one you should probably look to diversify. In terms of that, I know you have silver. Do you have a view on more hard assets, perhaps something like real estate? And the other question I wanted to ask you is, what do you think of crypto?
I watch and observe crypto, and I'm obviously fascinated by it. I do not own any. I'm not short any. Never have been. And the reason is I don't see any practical widespread use for crypto. Now, it's a great trading vehicle, and many people have had a wonderful time. Maybe I'm just too foolish, but I don't see that crypto is ever going to become our money. I don't see the Washington or London or anybody ever saying, okay, you can pay your taxes in crypto if you want to. I don't see that it's going to have a great long-term future. I mean, it's not my first mistake if I've made a mistake, and I hope it's not my last mistake, but I don't see the future, the long-term future, except as trading vehicles.
Well, I think you said earlier that if it's you don't really like investing in something you don't understand, and I think that's fair. I put a small amount in it. I don't play around with it. If I lose it all, it won't change my life, and someday perhaps it will be really worth something. I can buy a flat for one of my kids or something like that. But something else, somebody said something quite clever today. I thought I saw it, and they said the Treasury should own some crypto so they have a better sense of what's going on with it. And I'd say that's probably not the worst idea. There was a trader, an older trader, who once said, when you have a position, you pay attention. And I think I think there's a lot of truth to that.
There's no question that if you own something, you learn a lot, you pay a lot of attention, and you focus, because you have to. So yes, I'm not sure it'll help the Treasury. The U.S. Treasury doesn't have a long history of being very smart. Most bureaucrats don't, but that's life. That's the world. We have to deal with it.
But perhaps your former intern is now Treasury Secretary. So hopefully you taught him a few things while you were with him. While he was with you, I should say.
Well, if I taught him a few things, he probably wouldn't be the Treasury Secretary. He'd probably have enough sense to do something else.
Well,
I did
nevertheless, I
notice
think
that he recently was suggested for the Federal Reserve, and he declined because he thought it was not a good job. So he learned something.
he's a smart man. I mean, I for one, and I think many folks are very glad that he's there, as the adult in the room, and is canny enough to to I think comport himself in such a way that the president listens to him. And we can get a lot. I think we can. There are more people who can do a decent job at the Fed than there can as Treasury Secretary. So I do hope he stays there for the balance of the administration. You're based in Singapore, so I wanted to ask, what are the Singaporeans? What are people who are outside the United States? They look at what's happening in Washington, particularly the president, who is a very unusual president. Some people say he is a game changer like FDR was, and we'll know that in the fullness of time. But what do people think? What do people in other places like Singapore and Asia? What are they thinking about the Americans? Have the Americans caught a fever, or this is a game? The game has changed, and we'll have to look at the Americans a completely different way from now on.
Well, I don't get the sense that many people are realizing that the U.S. will go into decline. That's not just the way people think about the world now or any time in the past. I'm sure 100 years ago, most people did not realize that the UK would go into decline. But if you have any understanding of life, of history, you know that whoever's on top, that's going to change. And that it's going to change about America, whether we like it or not.
Hopefully, I perhaps will not be here to see the decline or the fall. I would hope fervently for that. But you're right.
It's not a good time to be a young American. It's a good time to be an old American.
I think that might be the tagline for the show. I'd like to see you have young kids, I have young kids, and younger kids. So I certainly hope that perhaps they they don't see it as well. I want to move onto something a little bit different. I noticed when I was doing a little reading that you were born in Demopolis, Alabama.
Well, I grew up in Demopolis, Alabama. Yes, I wasn't born there, but I grew up there.
Oh, my apologies. So does that make you? That's not far from Tuscaloosa. Are you a big Alabama fan?
I did not go to university in Alabama, but how can you grow up in Alabama and not know about Alabama, University of Alabama football? And by the way, for what it's worth, Auburn, which is the other major university in the state, in the 50s were the national champs. They were the heroes of college football. Now, in Bear Bryant, a guy named Bear Bryant went to Alabama as the coach and had a wildly successful career. And Alabama football is now known all over the country.
I have to admit that it's unusual for a Chinese kid from New York to be an Alabama fan, but I got the legend of Bear Bryant, and I just thought the Crimson Tide was about the best team name I'd ever seen. Maybe the Fighting Sioux of North Dakota, would be somewhat close. So I've always been an Alabama fan. I caught the back end of Bear Bryant, and then of course Nick Saban has made it pretty good to be an Alabama fan. So I just saw that, and I thought you must be at least familiar with it. And one of my goals on my bucket list is I want to go to an Iron Bowl.
Hooray. I hope you do it. It's hard to get tickets because it's such a wild rivalry down there, but I hope you do it someday.
Well, perhaps I will see you there.
I will tell you, I was once having something with Bear Bryant, and I said to him at one point, "Oh, well, Coach Bryant, I've never been to an Alabama football game." Oh my gosh, the poor man was struck dumb. He couldn't believe it. Here, I grew up close to this Tuscaloosa, and here was somebody who'd never been to an Alabama football game. He was stunned. So I went to an Alabama football game. He got me tickets.
Ah, that is
And I
lovely.
went.
I remember. I remember his last bowl game was the Liberty Bowl. I think I must have been 81 or 82 or something like that.
For whatever reason, he was a very successful coach, extremely successful coach. No matter what people say about him, I don't know what they say, but they cannot say he wasn't a successful coach. He was great.
Certainly, certainly. I think what he did was he was able to recruit. He got the best talent. And in football, in finance, I think when you can get the best talent, you're going to end up doing very well.
Whatever it takes, he had it and he did it.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for spending so much time with us today. Really appreciate the perspective that you give, that you remember things that a lot of folks today don't remember. I mean, a lot of kids that I talk to don't even remember the barely remember 1997 and 1998, the Asian financial crisis. So really great to have your insights. I hope to talk to you again soon.
They don't remember Bear Bryant?
Certainly not in New York City with his houndstooth cap.
Hat, I should
I
say.
look forward to seeing you again, and if we're ever in Tuscaloosa at the same time, we will go to a game.
Let's do that. Thank you so much once again.